Okay, the meeting is recorded. Welcome to the Wednesday, July 28th, 2021 meeting of the Oak Grove Community Council. My name is Valerie Chapman, and I'm the vice chair of the council. And Joseph Edge, who is our chair, is not with us tonight, so I will be chairing and relying on the rest of the board to help out. So I'd like to invite the board members to introduce themselves so everyone knows who they are. Mark, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Mark Elliott, and I live off of Concord Road and River Road. Thank you.
And Rich?
Hi, I'm Rich Nippon, and I live 3 blocks due south of the Fred Meyers in Oak Grove. And I'm second to Mark as being new on the board.
Jane?
My name is Jane Civiletti. I live on Fair Oaks and Oak Grove Boulevard, and I'm the treasurer. And Valerie, since I'm here, I will just give the treasury report at this time.
Okay.
Well, there's some good news. We had some contribution input into our treasury of the amount of $40. So the balance now stands at $1,638.38.
Right, thank you. I'd also like to take this moment to introduce Danielle Lohman, who is agreed to be an acting secretary for our group, since we did not have anyone run to be take that position, but we really need someone that is skilled to do that. So welcome, Danielle. We're glad to have you with us. And yourself and say where you.
Yeah, Danielle Lohman. I live on Evergreen and 21st.
Thank you. So, Rich, do you want to give us some input about the where the minutes are or online?
Yes, I've recently taken over the website and trying to get it updated. The minutes are up to date for up till the June minutes. The June is not in as minutes, but it is a link now to the YouTube meeting. So if you really want to know what happened in June, you can listen to the YouTube meeting. Or you can just look at the agenda, which is online. Hopefully from now on, Danielle will be taking minutes and I'll be publishing them. And you can keep up to date that way if you happen to miss a meeting.
Great. Thanks, Rich. Okay, I think we are ready to move ahead into our program for tonight. And so first up, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Craig Van Valkenburg, who is the CEO of Willamette View, who is going to do some updates and information for us tonight. Thank you, Craig.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your community council meeting this morning or evening. I too have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to push the green button and see if I can share the screen, if that is acceptable to you. So when I talked with Valerie about providing a bit of an update for you about Willamette View, what I'd like to do is walk through with you just a very high level, quick snippet of the background and what we have on our property, and then get into a particular point that we're still working through from the remains of a development project that we had in 2019, which is a crosswalk across River Road and Park Avenue, and give you an update on where that stands. We've had questions from community members, and I've had a lot of residents here asking about the progress on getting a crosswalk across River Road onto Park for people that are walking in the area and then making their way down to the light rail station. So I'll start with just kind of a high-level overview of Willamette View. I imagine a number of you know about where we're located on River Road to drive past, may have friends, family members, neighbors that have lived here over the years. We've been in business since 1955. We are a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3. So we have a vision and a mission statement. Our vision is to transform the experience of aging, and our mission is to inspire the art of living well. So how we operate the organization, develop services and programs is all about supporting the people that live here, the employees that work here, and then also our relationships with the larger community around Willamette View. And so that is our task, kind of day to day to run the business. We're considered what's called the life plan community or a continuing care community. I'm not going to read through this, but you can see we have it's an array of services for the people that live here. We are what's referred to as an entry fee based model, which means that people do provide a payment to move to Willamette View. In exchange for that payment, under the IRS code, we're responsible to provide housing, healthcare, and financial security, which means that once somebody moves here, they are here for the duration of their life. And if they run out of money while they live here, we're responsible for taking care of them. We have a foundation. We're run by a volunteer board of directors. We're accredited internationally. And we have an affiliation from our roots with the Methodist Church, although years ago we became more of a non-denominational community. We have a very active resident council, resident association that actually oversees all of the active daily living programs that residents are part of or engaged in here. And 3 of the resident council officers are actually members of our corporate board of directors. So we have a link between the resident council and the kind of the business side of the organization. Some of you may have seen this a long time ago, back in 1953. This was a sign out on Highway 99 about the manor being built, and that's the old building that opened January 3rd of 1955. And since then we've grown quite a bit compared over the years, 1955 to 2021. You can see the organization's grown in terms of acreage, buildings, number of houses, services, number of residents that live here. It opened with 279. Today we have 485. And you can see the employee complement from 40 folks back in 1955 to 300 today. So we're a pretty good size employer in Clackamas County. And we, in our food and beverage department specifically, we've had probably more than 4,000 kids from the high schools in the area working here, oftentimes as their first job. And that's actually an area that we have put a lot of emphasis on is recruiting the high school kids to work for us. The residents actually see it as kind of an extension of maybe grandkids or their families. So it's a great cultural environment for both the kids and the residents. I'm going to go through a few slides here just to kind of tell you a little bit of a story about why we've still got a crosswalk issue that we have to get resolved. This is a drawing of the property lines of Willamette View. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner, down on the river, we have property that's just shy of an acre on the Willamette River. That actually came with Willamette View in 1953. We actually drew water out of the Willamette River for all of the irrigation on the campus. Today we have a well on that property that we still draw water for irrigation for the campus. So it's not potable water, but it's water sufficient for irrigation. We own some properties on Laurie Avenue, which is on the left side, and then the large acreage is about 27.5 acres. And then across the street from River Road, we own properties that are in these dark boxes. And over on the far right lower corner, there's kind of a pie-shaped property there. So we've acquired all those parcels over the years, and that's actually Park Avenue. And if I can put my cursor on it, we have had, I'm going to go down this line. So here's an entrance to Willamette View. Here's an entrance. Here's an entrance. Here's the old main entrance. And then we actually had another entrance into kind of the north side of the property. So when we developed this is a health center and a skilled nursing unit, and then all these cottage houses back in 2000, the bond financing that we did through the county hospital facility authority required us to close 2 of the entrances on the property. So we closed the one up here at the north, and we were supposed to at the time align this front entrance with Park Avenue, because if you've driven up and down this road, you've experienced the traffic patterns and the kind of hardship of making a left-hand turn going south against oncoming traffic. So we needed to realign that front entrance, and part of the deal was with the county is when we did a next project, we would make that alignment happen. So kind of fast forward to, this is just an aerial picture that gives you a little bit better idea. So in the recent work that we did with aligning Park Avenue and River Road, we closed another entrance to the property. And then this old front entrance moved over here to these blue lines, which is the new alignment with Park Avenue. The county wanted us to have a T intersection, so it was easy to make left and right-hand turns. So we added a left-hand turn lane on River Road going north, and that was part of the improvement of this intersection. This is a kind of a rendering, an architect's rendering layover on top of our site of a building that we built. It's called the North Point Homes, and this is 47 units of an apartment, 47 unit apartment for independent living. So you can see down at the bottom how we lined up this entrance pretty closely on this rendering with Park Avenue. So eventually this entrance would be closed. So part of the construction, and so we paid for all of this realignment as part of our bond financing with this project. So we were required to put in bike lanes, a left-hand turn lane, and then improve the Park Avenue entrance or alignment with, see if I can find it here. So we had to align Park Avenue straight on with our entrance, because if you remember, Park Avenue kind of came up and did a little bit of a dog leg onto River Road. So we improved the sidewalk all along here down to 21st, straightened out the Park Avenue a bit and aligned it with River Road. And so I'll come back to this, but this gives you a kind of a close-up view of the work that was done. So with this, what was part of the original plan was to put a crosswalk across this sidewalk right here to Park Avenue, so that pedestrian crossing from the apartments to the north of us, Willamette View, to folks in the neighborhood that were moving up and down River Road could actually safely cross and make their way down Park Avenue to the light rail station or to the trolley trail or into the neighborhoods. So it was a way to create a safety mechanism for people to cross the road. And you can see down here to the left, there is a crosswalk, and this is in front of that little store that's on River Road. So the tail of the crosswalk kind of took a life of its own. When we originally had the development plan for the alignment of Park Avenue and River Road, we were supposed to have completed the crosswalk as part of that by the end of 2019. So we had a plan that was a solar crosswalk. I think it had a blinking light on it with striping across this to the road. So we had a design cost of about $50,000 for that. The county did not accept that proposal from us. So we went back to the drawing board to come up with a hardwired crosswalk, which meant that we would need to do a saw cut across the road, lay in the hard wiring, connect two crosswalk signs to each other, and then put the road back and lay down striping. So the cost went up from $50,000 to $200,000. And our contractor had some real heartache about doing that particular type of work, and so we backed off on that one. So we asked if we could just paint a crosswalk on the street, like was a little bit farther down on River Road. And the county did not want just a painted crosswalk. They want something with lights and signals on it. So we went back to the drawing board and looked at a new solar design with some new standards that the county provided to us. But after going through the design work and the costing of it, the price jumped up to about $340,000. And so that was more than we had in our budget and available from our bond financing to pay for it. So one of the challenges with the new design is that we were required to bore under the road instead of doing a saw cut across the road to lay down conduit. And our contractor, because we've done a lot of work out there, there's a lot of basalt rock, and they just didn't feel like they were going to be able to drill deep enough under the road, across under the road without hitting basalt rock and then having bigger challenges. So we backed off on that. So we've, in essence, done nothing at this point to get a crosswalk across River Road onto Park Avenue. So we went back and asked again if we could just do a painted crosswalk, and the county turned that down again. Essentially, you know, what we're told is that every intersection is a crosswalk for pedestrians, and so absent a painted crosswalk is still a crosswalk. That doesn't really, I think, feel right or sit right for us with you know, the number of people that we know cross that area, especially residents, employees walking back and forth, people getting down to light rail, neighbors. I see a lot of people from the apartments coming south, getting across River Road. So we're still trying to figure out what we can do for an affordable design to get a crosswalk system there for pedestrian crossing. And what we're talking about is just essentially across this portion of River Road to get folks safely to and from Park Avenue. We've had a lot of comments about this right-hand turn area. That was a design that was given to us to install, so we did. At one point, we were asked to actually improve this south side of Park Avenue all the way down to 21st with a sidewalk, but that had never been part of the original plan design. So that's still kind of out there at some point in time to make that improvement. So what we were looking at, this gives you an idea of just a quick overlay of this area, but trying to get some form of a painted crosswalk across the street to help people safely moving back and forth. As I mentioned, and it's what is aligning up with Park Avenue. We've had a lot of questions from people about the setback here, the cones that are in the road, and so forth. But that was part of the design that came back from the county as part of this redevelopment area. So at this point, we've put out just pedestrian safety flags that residents and employees can pick up, cross back and forth across the street. And we're again looking at what would be an acceptable crosswalk program and get something back to the county to talk with them about that we can get out there for folks for safe crossing. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to respond, but give us an update of the work that we've done and what we're still trying to accomplish.
I see that Eleanor Hunter has raised her hand, has a question.
Hi, Craig. I'm just wondering how long has this process been that you've been dealing with the county on these different back and forths about trying to get a safe crossing on River Road?
It's been going, well, it went all through 2020 because we had to finish up the intersection road work by the end of 2019, which we did. And so we had to move ahead and get that completed. So we decided, we just kept talking with the county over the last year. So, kind of giving everybody a hall pass with COVID. Everybody was working from home, but we went back and forth for probably 4 or 5 months with some different design concepts and requests for feedback, and it all just kind of stalled out. I think it was in November of 2020.
Craig, can I ask you to stop screen sharing so that we can see people for questions? And I saw Rich Nepound's hand go up. I can't see everyone, so until okay.
Yeah, Jane's hand I also saw up.
Yes.
Craig, my two questions. One is, given the nonprofit nature and the demographics, the number of people and the demographics of the people that live there, has any effort been made to find grant funding to make this a safe intersection?
We were, sorry, go ahead.
No, answer, please.
Yeah, there was at one point, one of our board members is in the tax exempt business, and she's on a couple of boards for Metro. So she led us to what might have been a Metro grant that we could have applied for. And we talked with the folks at Metro about the grant, but the conditions for the grant, we weren't going to be able to meet them. So that's the only grant that we pursued discussions on for some funding support.
Do you expect that A, it's not going to happen, or B, the county will come to some terms with you? What are your expectations for the future?
We would love the county to come to terms with us on finding a suitable design and cost for that crosswalk.
Jane, you had your hand up. I want to take a couple more questions, and then I want to make sure that we don't go on too long.
Sure.
The intersection itself, the roadway as it was constructed, you did say that was designed by the county? They came up with the design for completing that, I guess, a cross intersection from a T intersection originally.
The county gave us the guidelines on what they wanted for the intersection. So, I mean, our architects and engineers actually designed it and submitted it to them for approval. But I made a point of that kind of painted stripe, half egg-shaped stripe, when you make that right-hand turn on Park Avenue. And that was what they wanted.
I see. I just have to say, I frequent that intersection, and I find it far inferior to what had been there before. Making a left-hand turn from Park onto River Road is impossible unless you get your vehicle way out into the road. And frankly, the other day, as we were going north on River Road, my husband almost hit a police officer who was turning left and making that turn because he had pulled way at it. Okay. Yep. Nice.
Yep. I do it every day. And we Yeah, we had those conversations about the placement of that stop bar on Park. And I guess that's the intention of it, is you stop and then you encroach into the intersection to make your transition. So, yeah. Yeah, we've had comments from truckers that have pulled out of our property trying to make that turn. It's very, very, very difficult. People make wider turns than normal. So it's a problem, and we've communicated that back to the county. So.
Danielle, you had your hand up?
Yeah, well, I actually, fortunately, I don't deal with that intersection because I live on 21st, so I just either go out on Evergreen or over. So lucky there. But I did want to say, I can really see the need for a crosswalk there on Park Avenue. Of course, I mentioned I live on River Road or Evergreen, right by the River Road Mart, and there's that crosswalk that exists there. That's where my daughter's bus stop is. So I can tell you firsthand that crossing itself is not, I don't trust it. I don't trust that cars will stop. They go very fast. I don't know, the speed limit's 40 maybe, but I mean, people are going 50 and above on there. So I mean, personally, as a resident, I would love to see something of a nice crosswalk on that street in general, and something more in your face than what we have now. I think it would be great for the community.
Yep.
Gwen, I saw a hand go. You're muted. Yeah.
Okay, when you're talking about lights there, did you have in mind lights that would be triggered by pedestrians, or something that would more like a more conventional traffic light? Or just lights?
Yeah, the style of crosswalk light is a pedestrian activated one, and it's called a rectangular rapid flash beacon light. So are you familiar with that? Yeah. Yeah, RRFD, if you Google the acronym, that's what you'll find. So that's what it is. That's the design concept.
So they're asking for just what you see on River Road at Torbank, right? Those flashing signs activated by the pedestrian buttons, right? That didn't cost $333,000.
Is that the one in front of Rose Villa? Is that what you're referencing? Yeah, that's a
Torbank.
Yeah, that's a different design than the standard that we've been working with.
So the county doesn't like that one? That's not satisfactory?
I can't tell you if that one's satisfactory to them or not. It was what was a standard at the time. So I think they've changed the standard since then.
So Craig, I'm gonna, because we have other people on the agenda tonight, but I want to ask you, how can, is there a way that we as a community can be helpful?
I think awareness of this, I mean, it is something we're still trying to get resolved. If you're supportive of crosswalk across River Road onto Park for pedestrian traffic, I'd appreciate knowing that, because I want to make sure that what we do is going to be a fit for the surrounding community, as well as the folks that live here at Willamette View and the apartment complexes. I mean, we have a lot of people that cross down River Road, down Park Avenue, down to the light rail, walk through all the neighborhoods and the trolley trail, and it's our objective to make it a safe place for folks. So.
Eleanor, did you have a last comment here, or?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the Oak Grove Community Council do whatever we can to support this, so that something gets addressed before somebody gets hurt, and that getting a sidewalk doesn't have to rely on somebody being harmed at that intersection before it takes place. So.
Do I have a second to that motion?
A second.
So,
and then you ask about, is there any discussion?
Yes, is there any discussion tonight? I was trying to figure out how we were going to do this. Okay. Are there other?
Greg Wennison has a question.
So I'm trying to get a little bit of clarity on this. The reason that there's not a crosswalk there is because the county will only approve the $333,000 design.
They would have, well, I mean, that's what it came down to, yes.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, that's what it came down to.
So can I add cost effective or a reasonable cost into the motion? Because $340,000, that's crazy, I think.
Right.
Second.
Are there other people that would like to add to this discussion?
Could the motion be clarified?
Jane, do you want to read it or?
I can read it.
Oh, great.
I have the motion for the Oak Grove Community Council to investigate ways to support cost-effective crosswalk approval for the River Road and Park Avenue crossing.
How many members do we have tonight who are voting members? Eleanor, can you help me? We need
28 people. We probably don't have the full complement of 25 voting members is my guess.
Okay.
So then we have to do it by name.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So are people prepared to do that?
You know, for time's sake, I appreciate Paul's chat down there. It might be easiest for everybody to vote that way. And then Danielle, you can look at the chat and connect the names to the voting members, because this is one of the more time consuming and complicated parts of things. So,
yeah, and Jane will help me with that because she has the list of voting members. So we'll take care of that together.
Great. So how about every voting member put your vote in the chat to either agree with the motion, to abstain, or to disagree. How about that? Does that seem to work well for people?
Who are we sending it to? Everyone?
Send
Or
it
just
to Valerie. Send it to Valerie, the host. She's
Okay.
at the top.
Or to everyone, or whatever.
Or you know, it would be fine to send it to Danielle at this point. She's the secretary. So people have already done that. I will pass it off, but I'm going to ask you to send it to Danielle Lohman, because that way she can work on this as we're going forward.
Yeah, go ahead, and if you've sent it to Valerie, send it back to me, and then I'll dedupe and connect with Jane on the voting members. And if you're not a voting member, please abstain.
Or right, abstain from voting. Don't vote abstain, but abstain from voting. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're not a voting member, yes, please don't do anything in the chat box. Just let voting members.
Please stand by.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's something we're going to keep working on to get resolved, and I'll report back as we get some progress.
Thank you.
I'll be closing voting in about a minute, so get your votes in, and I'll be taking it down.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on, and we have with us tonight from the Oak Lodge Governance Project, Mitra Anushirvani and Eleanor Hunter, who will be presenting for us. So, and I also want to say, a lot of you know Eleanor, but Mitra is actually a new resident of the Oak Grove Community Council area. So welcome in both ways. And you're on. And I ask other people to please mute if you have not already done.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for this opportunity to speak. So before we get started with the presentation on the Oak Lodge Governance Project, I just wanted to take a few moments just to ask if there are any questions right off the bat that anyone has about the project, so that we can make sure that we address them during the course of the presentation. We're going to be covering a lot of information, but I'm just wanting to make sure that if there's anything right off the bat that people have. If you could put that in the chat to either myself or to Mitra, that would be really helpful. That's probably the best way to ensure that they don't get lost along the way. And so while people are sort of formulating a question or thinking about that, I just want to note that there are 10 members. Mitra and I are 2 of 10 members on the steering committee. Some of us have known each other for many years. Others have just met through the development of this effort. And the 10 members, we are under no illusion whatsoever that we represent the diversity of this community, not in terms of geographic location or ethnicity or economics or anything like that. We are just a group of volunteers with families and jobs and other volunteer activities who feel that things could be better. And we got together to try it, to get some answers to some fundamental questions. So just a little bit of background on incorporation in this area. For a sense of perspective, the city of Milwaukee was incorporated in 1903, and the city of Gladstone was incorporated in 1911. And the desire to incorporate has risen many times, and there was the most recent investigation was done by the group that call themselves the Friends of Local Control, and they were active between about 2009 and 2012. And they found that the most frequently asked question at that time was, what's it going to cost? And why do we need another layer of government? So to me, the question of what's it going to cost naturally leads to the question of what does it currently cost? And what are we getting for what we pay for? In other words, what's the return that we receive on the investment that we provide? So another question that often arises concerns the difference between the revenues that the urban areas put in versus the rural areas, and what are the services that are, the receipt of services from the county coffers versus the rural areas. And I just found out today that there are actually 4 zones in Clackamas County. There's urban, rural, distant rural, and mountain. Just to pass that on as fun facts for the family. So those are some of the factual issues and questions that get raised. And then there are the more personal or value-driven issues and observations. So there is an accepted recognition that Oak Lodge, which is the areas of Oak Grove, the CPO of Oak Grove and the CPO of Jennings Lodge, so we say Oak Lodge, it's an urban area with a current rural form of government. We also understand that the 5 county commissioners govern an area larger than the state of Rhode Island. And while one of them currently happens to live in the Oak Lodge area, there's not a requirement for any of them to do so. So we're just talking representation here. So the CPOs, or the community planning organizations, as we know, are advisory only. And under the current structure, the residents of this area really have no way of directly influencing, actively participating in shaping the future of this community. So the 10 members have a wide range of personal motivations for engaging in this effort. Some are involved because they want to see safe access to public parks where there's no shoulders or sidewalks. They have to get in their car and drive a quarter mile to the public park that just got put in near them. Some members want to ensure that there are family wage jobs close to affordable housing. Many want to see a comprehensive transportation plan that's not so based on automobiles. There's a desire for a range of housing options that satisfy and respond to the wide range of things that residents need in this area. Not everybody wants to live in a big suburban home. And there are also those of us who want to address the systemic policies that continue to marginalize some of our family members, our neighbors, our coworkers, and our friends. So the recent placement of that storage unit right across from Fred Meyer's in the center of our community, and the complete infilling of the Evangelical Retreat Center with no park area at all are 2 just recent examples of how this urban area with rural codes doesn't really have a say over what takes place. So the Oak Lodge Governance Project wants to ask the question, what is best for the future of our community? So I'll turn it over to Mitra at this point.
Sure, thank you, Eleanor. So first of all, I'm excited to be here as an Oak Grove resident. So we moved here in May from Jennings Lodge. So thank you. And I want to talk about this study that we've commissioned that's going to be released publicly in the next couple of months, and you'll be able to look at yourselves. And we think it's really important to provide some information to get some context, so that context in the process for how we got to this point, so that you're not, when you're looking at the data, you're not thinking, gosh, why did they consider annexation to Milwaukee only and not into Gladstone? And you're not caught up in those questions because you already have a background for the framework of which you're looking. While I'm speaking, I'm going to say a small handful of times, you should check that out on our website. And I want to point out that we do have a website, and that address is governanceproject.org. So you certainly don't need to go to it during the presentation, but I do want to make sure that information is out there. And I'm going to be going over a significant amount of information in a pretty short amount of time. So inevitably, I'm probably going to skip something or inadvertently not get into the weeds on a particular nuance. And I invite both questions at the end, and for any of the OLGP members who are present tonight, you are absolutely welcome to step in at the end and say the thing that I didn't say. So I'm gonna share screen and give you some context of our, let's see, hold on, desktop, share, okay. And so during COVID times, I got really good at first grade Spanish with my kiddo, and I did not get the chance to develop my PowerPoint presentation skills in Zoom. So thank you for your patience with me this evening as I do this for the first time. So this timeline was what I'm hoping is to give you to ground you in some context for how long we've been working on this, and to highlight some key points along the way that have been moving this project forward. So I'm going to start in early 2019 when a couple of community members who later became a part of the Oak Lodge Governance Project had a conversation with our Metro representative, Christine Lewis, about local area issues, including our governance structure. Knowing that it would take resources to get concrete data, to have substantive conversations amongst this community, Christine Lewis suggested that we apply for a planning and development grant in the 2020 cycle. And over the remainder of 2019, additional folks interested in similar issues, who would later become the Oak Lodge Governance Project, coalesced around writing this grant. In early 2020, writing this grant began in earnest. And initially, it was suggested that we apply for an equitable development grant, which would have yielded us $300,000 to $400,000, including money for community engagement. We wrote that application and it was a thing of beauty. And upon draft review, Metro suggested that our aims were better suited to the new area planning grant instead. So we went back to the drawing board and we wrote again. This time with the information that our funding was going to be significantly, the available funding was going to be significantly reduced, we had to significantly narrow scope to match those resources. So like I said, initially we thought we were going to get potentially $300,000 to $400,000 and support for community engagement. And now instead we were applying for $125,000 and no money for community engagement. So inevitably we were a little bit bummed. However, we still felt that it was of significant value to move forward with this process, really believing that this research and data would still be of value to the community and that we'd have time to build towards engagement at the report's release. That said, there have been opportunities for public feedback along the way, and Eleanor will talk more about that later. And I'm going to say this for the first time tonight, if you'd like to read the grant application, it is on our website. So this brings us to the late summer of 2020, and we find out that we have been awarded the full $125,000 request. OLGP is a private group of residents without any sort of legally identifying characteristics. Like, we're not a 501c3. And Metro couldn't just hand us a check and said, be well, let us know how it goes. We needed a fiscal sponsor, someone who's legally entitled to hold the money and write the checks. And as designated by Metro, it was their request that it was a government agency. So we reached out to both. It made sense to us to reach out to both Clackamas County and the city of Milwaukee to see if either entity would be interested in being our fiscal sponsor, and both declined. So from there, still wanting to help us move this project forward, Metro was looking for the path of least resistance and greatest efficiency. So they consulted their legal team and asked as to whether or not they themselves as Metro could serve as our fiscal sponsor, which is an unusual situation to set up. Legal said, sure, yeah, we can do it with this amount of money, up to $100,000, which was great because $25,000 of that was designated for a line item for program staff to administer the funds. But now that Metro was handling this internally, there was no longer a need for this line item, and the grant was reduced to $100,000, and Metro is now our fiscal sponsor. Despite the back and forth, we really actually feel that this was a blessing and that it was really the best way to handle the fiscal sponsorship for two reasons. First is this is entirely a community-led project, and we feel it is imperative to center community voices, especially at this stage of work, in order to prevent potential conflicts of interest with elected officials. It probably would have been fine if City of Milwaukee or Clackamas County had been the fiscal sponsors, but it could have at best invited awkwardness, at worst conflicts of interest, to have a government agency that's being studied by a group of private residents write the check to the resident who's looking at the agency giving them the checks. So for that reason, we thought it ended up working in our favor. And the second reason is that it just frankly led to more efficient use of taxpayer dollars. Metro simply used money in their operating budget to fund existing staff support. So we have the money. Now we need to know with whom we are working. In keeping with fiscal efficiency goals, we were required to work within the list of Metro pre-approved consultants. And this means that we didn't go through a lengthy RFP process to find our consultant team. And there is an enormous amount of value in doing that in particular situations. Because our analysis is so specific and so specialized, frankly, there wouldn't have been a lot to have chosen from in the Portland metro area regardless. And we really feel very confident that we have the best team that the Pacific Northwest could have offered us, supporting us in this project. So 3J is the company hired to project manage, and Echo Northwest is the team hired to produce the governance and fiscal analysis. And both 3J and Echo are highly well regarded in their fields. Both have extensive experience working with Oregon municipalities, and individually, the folks who are working on this report all have backgrounds working specifically in this area. So we feel really confident in both their knowledge and their familiarity with the systems, and frankly, folks and relationships that already exist here. So it's a good thing. So now we have the money, we have the people, and now we need specifics about what precisely is going in this governance and fiscal analysis. So there's a phrase, working within resources available, which is another way of saying that we're prioritizing money because we don't have enough to fund all the things we want. And so there weren't resources available to fund all the scenarios we could ever possibly imagine in a really open-ended consideration of what could happen here. So with that, the consultant team came up with a framework that required us to work within presently legally available options. So we couldn't just make up our own governance and figure it out on the fly. We needed to work with existing statutes, which seems pretty reasonable. So 3 potential scenarios were developed to eke out the most amount of data for our dollars to determine potential governance and fiscal consequences in our area. First, what does it look like if we remain unincorporated? Second, what would annexing into Milwaukee potentially look like? Third, what would it look like if we incorporated into our own city? Again, fully understanding that these aren't our only options, but that this is the best way possible to get the most information with our available resources. So I know a few of you are thinking back to the question I asked in the beginning. Well, okay, so why Milwaukee and not Gladstone? So for this round of study, and we are considering this a first round in a undetermined amount of study to be to be decided amongst future conversations, Milwaukee has more in common with the study area, like population size and already some shared service providers. And we decided it would be most cost efficient for this particular analysis to create an apples to apples scenario with a potential new city. And it's frankly easier to get there with the city of Milwaukee comparison than it is with the city of Gladstone. So once the consultant team was in place, it became time to develop the full scope of work. We have the money, we have the people, we have the framework. Now we need the broader content. And to be of greatest value, we really wanted direct community feedback to help shape this scope of work. And so to that end, we created a community survey, and I'm going to let Eleanor talk about the survey that we sent out.
Great. Thanks, Mitra. Right. So we're about October 2019, and it's this time period between realizing that we got the grant and when the scope of work is going to be finalized.
2020.
2020. Oh my gosh. Right. Well, we all know what happens at that time, right? Thank you. So we took the opportunity to do a quick pulse on the community to make sure that we weren't leaving anything out. None of us are experts in this, and we just realized this was a chance to see, like, are we on the right track? So in October, we published an article in the Clackamas Review announcing that the grant was awarded and announcing what the Oak Lodge Governance Project is about. And in that article, there was a link to a survey. It was just 3 open-ended questions. Again, it's all about open-ended questions because there's not an agenda here. There's not an answer that we're plugging towards. It's just finding out what's going on. So the first question was regarding local economic issues. What question would you want to have answered? And we had some prompts about, franchise fees or commercial zoning. The second one was in a study researching local governance options. What questions would you want to have answered? And 3, pretty much the most open-ended question you could have is, anything else you'd like to comment on or share with us. So as expected, we found that across all 3 questions, there was a significant share of responses that expressed concern or outright aversion to tax increases. Imagine lots of exclamation points and many all cap letter responses. And although many of those concerns were tempered by a desire to understand the cost-benefit balance that comes with local control. So again, with that economic question, respondents they were interested in knowing whether a tax base is economically viable. If not, what could be done to change that? There was a really strong desire for hard numbers, for certainty and clarity about certain service levels and costs for those services. And people really wanted to learn the balance between the tax revenue and the expenditures for comparing if the area is under county control and administration or if the city would be in control. So all those economic questions were really issues that we had been wondering as well. So we felt like, okay, great, we're on the right track as far as that goes. Responses to the second question about local governance options, a lot of people want to know what are the powers and responsibilities of a city, mainly in terms of land use and revenue authorities. Some people wanted to find out how could you specifically restrict car lots. Many people talked about wanting to address law enforcement as a service that they'd like to see provided by a city. And there were a lot of comments that really indicated a great level of satisfaction with the current service providers for parks, for water and sewer, and for schools. And there was concern that joining a city could negatively impact some of those service providers. So while there was a lot of interest in how local control, what would happen if local control took over these urban services, no one had any kind of interest in having a city take over the services or the assets of, say, the Oak Lodge Water Services District or the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District. People were very happy with those services. So there was a lot of indicated of, uncertainty about the roles and functions of cities and wondering if you join a city, would the zoning change, would Metro authority over the area change, stuff like that. So again, pretty much everything in the local governance answers were things that we were already, considering. So again, we felt still on track. Now, the third question anything else you want to comment on. We personally found the most useful because what we found was there's a real lack of basic understanding about that this study, the Oak Lodge Governance Project, is just a very first step, a very beginning of something that fits into a much larger, much longer process that may or may not culminate in a process to change governance in this area. We don't know. We have to find out the results from the study first. So there were a lot of comments that thought that we were at late stages of the process, or the key decisions had already been made, and a lot of concern about what potential impacts that would happen and who's doing this and everything. And so clearly we learned, like, we have to do a lot better job of providing information about what the process is that's going on in this project. So again, we're not pushing any kind of solutions. We're just wanting to find out what's actually going on now and what would happen under certain particular options. So in addition to that quick, simple survey that really pretty much validated that we were on track, we also reached out to our neighbors who were involved in previous local governance efforts to learn more from them, and again, provide us with an opportunity to course correct. So we had a Zoom meeting with, I think it was about 20 or 25 people, where Ed Gronke, who I believe is on this call, and I hope many of you know, he's one of our senior statesmen in the community, he lives down in Jennings Lodge. And he gave us a very valuable history of the previous effort. And he cited two of the most valuable lessons that were learned. One of them is that there has to be a lot more education. And that was certainly validated by the responses in the survey. And there were 86 responses, by the way, to the survey questions. So number one lesson learned was more education. And number two was to not think of the area as all wanting the same thing, that an area might want to annex, an area might want to stay the same, an area might want to incorporate. To again, don't think about the whole thing as one cohesive unit. And we are so sorry that we did not record that meeting. That would have been a really helpful thing, but we're learning, we're recording now. So we learned from the past, we learned from our neighbors, and we incorporated this information into the scope of work, which Mitra will now talk about.
So we collated these survey responses and presented them directly to the consultant team, and we recorded this Zoom meeting. In the process of these survey results, we learned that many in our community share a value of transparency with the members of OLGP, and we wanted to honor this shared value by making sure that this meeting, in which we're presenting community feedback to the consultants to include in the work, is available for everybody to view. And you can find it on our website.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that.
And from this meeting, there was still additional work that needed to be completed before the scope of work could finally be set and we could send the consultant team on their merry way. So first, we needed to determine the potential service providers to be studied amongst the three scenarios, and we needed to study, and we needed to establish the study boundary. Among all three scenarios, incorporation, annexation, and remaining unincorporated, North Clackamas Parks and Rec, OLWSD, Oak Lodge Water Service District, and Clackamas Fire District, oh, I'm gonna switch slides now, hold on. There we go, are remaining the same. They are remaining as is. All three scenarios keep these special districts in place. That said, data reflecting costs of these entities exist within the report, but these are represented universally regardless of modeled options. So what this means in non-jargony speak is that if you're someone who's wondering, oh, what would it cost for a brand new city to create its own parks district from scratch? You will find yourself a little disappointed with this report because we're not giving you that. Instead, what we're giving you is what it presently costs residents to participate in NCPRD, and the same with our water service district, and the same with Clackamas Fire. So why did we do that? And why not just say, what does it cost to do any of this stuff from scratch? Well, first, I want to acknowledge what Eleanor said, that there's a high degree of satisfaction with our existing special districts, OLWSD and NCPRD in particular. And I'm going to go back to the efficiency argument. Some of these entities presently share services with the city of Milwaukee, And because with the resources available for the study and trying to make apples to apples comparisons, it just made more sense to study options for services that felt like they had more potential for change in different scenarios amongst the three scenarios. So what does that mean is different in the three scenarios? Well, policing, transportation, stormwater management, community development, and governmental administration. Now, I know some of you are going, wait, stormwater management, that sounds like that should be in the OLWSD wheelhouse. And you are kind of correct. I want to clarify this because stormwater is a shared responsibility between OLWSD and the county. And the parts the parts of stormwater that fall within the OLWSD jurisdiction, watershed protection, is remaining constant in all three scenarios. Stormwater management, which is infrastructure and capital improvements, that falls within the county. And that piece of it is being modeled differently in each of the three scenarios. The second is that I know sometimes people go community development. That sounds very broad. I wonder what that could possibly encompass. Well, in this particular instance, community development means land use planning, permitting, economic development, and code enforcement. So in addition to these service providers, we now have we have set the service providers, that framework in place for the study. And now finally, we're going to talk really seriously about what is this study boundary, which I'm sure a number of you have been wondering about from the very beginning. Let's see, where is it? And here we are. Here is the study boundary. So you'll see that it pushes up against the city of Milwaukee. It pushes down south against the city of Gladstone. Obviously, we're not going to cross into the river. And then that leaves some question marks to the east of us. Oh, yeah, Eleanor?
And I'm going to interrupt here for a moment because it's 8:07.
Oh.
And I think the meeting ends at 8:15, right? I thought it was 8:30. So I think it's about 8:15 and there's some stuff at the end of the meeting. So we need to talk more quickly and leave some things out. So if we can.
Okay.
So the UGMAs might, get a little sketchy in there. So.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. So the long and short of why this boundary is what it is because we're not pushing into either of the incorporated areas, the city of Gladstone and the city of Milwaukee. These areas that are cross-hatched, those are what we call UGMAs, urban growth management areas. And those are essentially what the city of, in very layman's terms, are essentially what the city of Milwaukee and the city of Gladstone have called dibs on for potential future annexation. We really didn't want to go into those areas, and we didn't in the city of Milwaukee. However, we prioritized keeping the CPOs and the existing community structures intact. And so this boundary reflects both the Oak Grove Community Council and the JLCPO in their entirety, because we felt it was more wrong to divide Jennings Lodge in half and only get half the amount of data for that particular part of the community versus pushing into the Gladstone UGMA. If we are happy to follow up with that point later. Send me an email, connect with us on the website or any of our social media channels. Let's see. And from there, and once that was set, the study was ready to kick off beginning of January 2021. In this time, 2 representatives from our steering committee have been meeting almost twice a month since then with the consultant team to offer feedback, go through questions, provide guidance, and to give updates between the 2 groups. Metro has been entirely hands-off, and the relationship has been exclusively between the consultant team and the steering committee. So now that we're in the final stages of the study development, you can expect to see the report this fall. We'll be excited to share it with you, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that the Oak Grove Community Council board will want us back on the agenda to speak about that report when it launches.
Okay. So since December, we've been making the best use we can of the communication vehicles that we've got, considering that we have no budget for doing that. So we've had lots of op-eds in the Clackamas Review. In April and May, we had a series of weekly articles that every member of the steering committee put in their own personal motivation statement, which is really interesting learning about things. We have Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts. And ta-da, yes, our website has been launched, and it's www.oaklodgegovernanceproject.org. We've been in Thelma's calendar. We've had info sessions. And again, the public engagement portion of this effort has not truly begun. At this point, we've just been letting people know where the research study is and what the purpose, motivation, and the openness of the Oak Lodge Governance Project is about. Because again, this is a really different kind of structure than other engagements that have been done in this area. Because again, it's open-ended. We're just trying to get the factual information. So we know that the report will answer a number of questions, but it's sure to raise even more of them. So if any of you have groups of friends that you want us to talk to, or book clubs, or any kind of connections like that, we're wanting to start spreading the word about what's going on and when the grant's going to be coming out. And with that, we'll open up to questions. So thanks, everyone.
I'm putting your social media details in the chat. So if anyone's interested in following, they can go there, and the website's there as well.
Great, Danielle. Thank you so much. Thanks. So sorry if we went over our time. So
I appreciate that you were here and did a very thorough presentation about the study, and reiterate, as Eleanor and Mitra have said, that the public engagement happens thoroughly after all of the information is there, so that there is something to share with people. And we do have other things on our agenda tonight, but I'm looking to see if there's anyone else that has a question they would like to ask Mitra and Eleanor at this point about the study or the work of the steering committee.
And I guess part of it is I'm just wanting to reiterate why Mitra and I wanted to go into such detail on certain things, is to help people understand the amount of thought and consideration and reflection and back and forth, and really wonderful working relationships with the consultants to try to figure out how to make this as efficient and cost effective as we can to go forward. So there's really some substantive information that all of us can benefit from having and learning what the realities are of the economics in our area. So that was the desire. Okay, I don't see any questions, so thanks everyone. If you have any, please, there's a Gmail account, oaklodgegovernance@gmail.com. So that one's good too. So thanks everyone so much.
Thank you both. So we're going to move on our agenda to our LUARC section. And so I'm going to ask Mark to take it away.
Thanks, Valerie. We did have a brief information that we wanted to provide to the members about the status of the Housing Strategies project. In January, this group hosted Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division staff as they presented the Housing Strategies Phase 1 project, and proposed amendments to the zoning and development ordinance have been drafted and will be presented at public hearings before the Planning Commission on August 23rd and the Board of County Commissioners on October 6th. The proposed amendments narrowly address the restrictive provisions of the zoning to be better aligned with the housing policies in the county's adopted comprehensive plan, as recommended by the Housing Affordability and Houselessness Task Force 2 years ago. The Phase 1 amendments will allow a modest increase in housing capacity for multifamily developments on underutilized commercial lands like McLaughlin Boulevard and 82nd Avenue, as well as a modest reduction in parking requirements and an adjustment to the Affordable Housing Bonus Program that incentivizes production of protected affordable housing units. As proposed, the amendments will make it easier for private investors acting independently to help the county meet its adopted public policy goals. The proposed amendments are not out of line with these types of developments already allowed in our area and do not represent a significant shift to the county's land use policy. If this group is interested in the technical details, we can present more information at our August 25th meeting. There are 2 more phases to the Housing Strategies project coming in the future to implement House Bill 2001, Phase 2, and Temporary Shelters, Phase 3. Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you. Did you want to once again say where the when the meetings are for feedback?
Yes, the first meeting's happening on August 23rd before the Planning Commission. I believe these are in-person meetings, but may also be available on Zoom. And the second meeting is before the County Board of Commissioners on October 6th.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make the point that those meetings are also on your agenda if you had an agenda this evening so that you can find them easily. So we want to move in quickly to our community updates, and I believe Greg Wennison is going to do the Community Emergency Response Team update. Thank you.
Good evening. Real quick, Oak Lodge CERT is a real quick thumbnail. It's a community emergency response team. It's basically your neighbors and citizens that are trained by Clackamas Fire, who are our sponsors, as kind of first responders get there. We're trained in search and rescue, light first aid, fire suppression, things like that. We basically are interested in building community resilience and in response to disasters and emergencies. So we cover Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge, and we're Oak Lodge CERT because it's a lot easier to pronounce than Jennings Grove CERT. So ha ha ha. Okay, so what are some of the programs that we do? One is our emergency water program. We're partnered with the Oak Lodge Water District. That's been kind of in abeyance since we haven't really been meeting in person for about 1.5 years now. But basically we have filters out in neighborhoods. They're capable of creating 160 gallons an hour of potable water, and the water district finances this, and we manage it basically. So if we do have the big one and water services interrupted, water, some at least be able to continue to have potable water provided kind of remotely from the water district. And the requirements are basically a neighborhood that's interested in hosting it and having a live water source, such as a creek or pools. One of the other things we do is basically training neighborhoods and neighborhood groups to be able to work together, recognize each other's skills and challenges if we do have a disaster. So one of our primary focuses has been on the earthquake. A 1.5 years has proven is that the emergency that you kind of plan for isn't necessarily the one that happens. So between the fires in September, we were deployed. We have to be officially deployed by the fire department, and we supported the fire department 1 year ago. And then since about September, we've been supporting public health and the fire department in flu vax provision, COVID testing, first of all, and then basically on a monthly basis since the beginning of the year, with the exception of this last month, has been helping to support vaccination clinic primarily at Clackamas Town Center. So we've spent several hundred hours assisting and providing primarily traffic control within this parking structure itself. So that's kind of the update of what we've been doing. We have not been doing any live training because we've been personally meeting by we do still train, but it's University of Utah, an online class, and we're planning the hands-on portion of that in October. We'll be planning live training next week, or excuse me, next year, but I don't know what the Delta variant is going to be doing to us. So even though Clackamas Fire has just opened up for public meetings, that I would actually be going or holding any unless people are vaccinated and or masked. That's it. Thanks. You're muted. You're muted, Valerie.
There we go. I couldn't get it to unmute. Thank you. And it's good to know that you're out there working in the community. And I want to apologize to everyone. I know we're a little bit over time. We don't have a lot more on our agenda, but ask you to remain with us just for another few minutes or so. Mark, will you do our updates on Concord and also in the Parks District.
Sure, thank you, Valerie. So Concord School update is that the next task force meeting is occurring on August 18th. That is a meeting that's open to the public and will be a Zoom meeting as far as I know. At the next community council meeting, I'll give you an update on that. There'll also be some information on some public engagement with the project. The project's currently in schematic design. For the Clackamas County Parks District, I'm on the advisory board for that Parks District, and I wanted to just a brief note that from our meeting this month, the Parks Director advised that the Parks Department is currently functioning with about half of its summer staff. That is because they are having the same problem many entities are having in being able to hire people. It is not from a lack of money, it's from a lack of people who are willing to work this summer. So even though all of the parks are open and the numbers are high as far as those folks who are coming to our county parks, the Parks Department is really stressed to the limit because of the lack of summer people who we hire every year to assist the Parks Department in administering the parks. Also wanted to let you know that there are now going to be 2 openings on the advisory board that will become available through the county website here probably in the next month or so for those who might be interested in being on the advisory board. So that's about it, and I'll pass it on over to Anita.
Sorry, Mark, would you mind, I know you're saying there's 2 openings on the advisory board. I know they recently went to like neighborhood specific appointments. Do you know where those positions would be opening?
There is a website on the county website. There is information on available openings in advisory boards in the county. That's where it'll be posted.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so then we have Anita Blackmar and I think Ryan Stee who are here from the other park board. So maybe Anita, you want to take it away, tell what the difference here so people know.
Yeah, this is North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, which is just a different entity. It's still very linked to the county, and the governing board is the BCC. But and what we've been doing mostly so far as DAC members or District Advisory Committee members is what I call DAC 101. We're just getting a lot of information from staff, NCPRD staff, including presentations and tours, at least about 10 hours of parks tours and facilities tours so far. So I don't have a lot to report, but I will say that the new director, Mike Bork, is coming on board tomorrow. And if you want to look him up, he's done some TED Talks. It's B-O-R-K. And if you ever want to go to a DAC meeting, they are the second Wednesday of each month from 5:30 to 7:30. And we've done them by Zoom. We've done one in person. So we'll see how that goes. And I've saved the best to last. I'd like to introduce Ryan Stee, who is a parks expert, but he could tell you a little more about himself.
Thank you, Anita. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Ryan Stee. I am the one of 2 representatives for the Oak Grove area. And I have 20 years of experience in long-range planning and development, as well as parks and recreation. I'm a civil servant at heart. And I currently work for the city of Hillsborough, and I am their long-range planner working on equity-based system plans and trail implementation. So I'm excited to be part of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're really glad to have you and welcome to our meeting. We hope that you will, as an Oak Grove resident, come and participate with us. We meet on the 4th Wednesday night of the month, and we would love to have you. I think those are the updates that I was given on the agenda. I don't think there were other updates, but there may be announcements. So if anyone has an announcement that they would like to make, this is the time to do that.
Valerie, I do show, did you do the Economic Development Commission,
That
your
was,
own update?
that's not the revised agenda that was set up. I could do that
Okay,
quickly. I went to the EDC meeting, which happens on the same fourth Wednesday at 7:30 in the morning. So I can start at
okay.
7:30 and end after this meeting.
I will grab the agenda.
Wanted to say, about that is that what we heard this morning is that employment in in Clackamas County is at 64% of what it was pre-pandemic. So it's coming back, but it's coming back differently, which is a reflection of what Mark told us about park hiring. As it was described at the EDC meeting, it's in flux and people are churning. There are people that are not sure they want to go back to the same kind of jobs they had. So they're looking for other kind of things and using this as a moment in time. That the pandemic time really caused a lot of people a lot of reflection on some of the work that they do. So that's part of what they're seeing. It's very similar to what they're seeing in other parts of the United States, actually. And I know that the largest employing industry in our area coming back is actually in the food preparation and serving, and they are very short, and also in healthcare support. So those kind of jobs are struggling right now in order to find people that want to take them. So that's part of the issue. Okay, our next meeting will be again at Zoom. As we're all aware, we're not sure what is going on at this point as far as in-person meetings and where the pandemic and all of that is and what we're going to be able to do. There are some facilities where we used to meet that have considerations about their residents and the people that use those facilities on the full-time basis. So we're still having to work that out, but we are actively working to figure out how to do hybrid meetings when we are able to go back in person, because we do know that for some people meeting on Zoom is actually preferable. So our next meeting will be at Zoom at 7 o'clock on August 25th. And our main speaker presentation that night will be Sarah McClurg from the Sheriff's Office, who will be coming to talk with us about Neighborhood Watch. So if Neighborhood Watch is something you or your neighbors are interested in, or you want to share that word, Sarah will be here the 25th on Zoom. And our next board meeting will be on Zoom again on August 2nd. We meet on first Monday nights. Is there anything else for the good of the order tonight? Well, I'm going to do a plug. I'll just say I got my trolley, Friends of the Trolley Trail t-shirts today. And so I know that the project is selling those t-shirts is to help put stripes on the trolley trail. So they're great shirts. I emailed Thelma to figure out how to get them because I couldn't make it up to the Elks Lodge. So I encourage you. And with that, we will adjourn. We will stay open on Zoom for people that might want to chat a little bit, but I will end our recording.
Thank you, Valerie, so much. Thanks for all your efforts. Thanks.
Great meeting, Valerie. Thank you.